How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Box to Box. It's the second game of the week. We've just dispatched of Everton 4-0 at the Emirates, and this weekend, Saturday 3 p.m, we're welcoming Bournemouth to the Emirates as well. I've got Craig with me from the Up the Cherries in All Departments YouTube channel. I'm going to put that in the title as well, so show some love if you can, people. Make sure you follow and subscribe. But first and foremost, Craig, it's been a little while, man. How you been, my guy?
Yeah, all good, mate, all good. And of course, the last time we was in contact, we had Scott Parker at the helm. Of course, everything's changed. It's been a tough season so far, but there's some really exciting things that are happening at Bournemouth. Some great signings, of course, the takeover as well. So things are looking up, but we need to get ourselves out of that relegation zone.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about the exciting side of things to start off with before we talk about where you are in the league and maybe expectations going into the season. What is the exciting points?
So the most exciting one is the takeover. So, of course, earlier on in the season, Maxim Darren was in charge, and he's been a fantastic chairman for us. He's helped us get from League One all the way to the Premier League, and built on the success of other chairmen, such as Eddie Mitchell as well in the past. So he's done a fantastic job, but he was always looking to sell. And what he's done is he's sold to Bill Foley, who is the owner of Vegas Golden Knights, an NHL team. And he's already pumped in a lot of money. And it's quite exciting. He's got a multi-club philosophy. So Bournemouth are the parent club. Lorient have already been bought as well, or he's had a stake in them. I think it's about 30%. He's also looking at a team in Belgium, believe it or not, and this is quite funny, we'll come back to this, but into Club Bruges, of course, where Scott Parker is at the moment. So that's the rumour that's going on. Yeah. So it's really, really promising. So that is really exciting. You know, he's got some real good aspirations. He's brought in some good people to the club as well. The signings he's made as well, and the money he's pumped in on that front, has enabled us to have a chance, really. I think if we didn't make the signings that we have, I think we'd be in real dire trouble. You know, to be honest, I think we would be nailed on to get relegated. But he's brought in the likes of Dongo Atara, who come from Lorient. That was quite a controversial signing. He's a right midfielder, fantastic, really quick, has already set up a couple of goals this season. Hamid Traore, who was signed on loan, but with an option to buy from Sassuolo. He's brilliant. You know, he was somebody who kind of flew under the radar during the transfer window, but against Manchester City recently, he was able to turn their defenders as well. I thought he was brilliant in that game, and he's been brilliant in every single game he's played for us so far. We've got Zabrini as well, Ilya Zabrini, a Ukrainian international, who unfortunately is injured at the moment, but he's a really exciting prospect. It seems like the signings we're making are for the future, and they're all players that haven't reached their potential yet, with the exception of Randolph, who, of course, come in from West Ham as a bit of a backup goalkeeper. The signings we've made have got bags of potential, and they're really, really exciting.
Yeah, you mentioned your signings. We're going to move into key battles later on in the show, but let's go from the exciting points about Bournemouth to where you are in the league. And was it expected coming into the season that it's going to be a tough one for you this year in the Premier League?
Yeah, I said in our earlier show that I would have taken 17th at the start of the season. I would still take 17th right now. The problem is that, of course, Scott Parker got off to a fantastic start against Aston Villa. We didn't expect that. But then had 3 games in a row, which was against Manchester City, against yourselves, and against Liverpool. And to be fair, in that Manchester City game, I thought we was okay. I didn't think we played that badly. We were still beaten 4-0. Against Arsenal at Dean Court. I
Yeah.
think what we did in the first 10 minutes, especially, is we sat too deep. We gave you too much time on the ball, and really he
Yeah.
was picking us off at ease. The third goal by Saliba, fantastic. There was nothing we could really do about that. And then that 10 minutes went into the whole game against Liverpool, where, let's be fair, Liverpool haven't been very good this season.
No.
We just gave them too much respect. We just sat back, and the comments after the game, we're appreciative of what Scott Parker did for us last season, getting us into the Premier League. However, if a manager's turning around and saying that the players aren't good enough, that needs more money to spend, that we're expecting more defeats like that, with a team of youngsters, the likes of Jordan Zamora, Jadon Anthony, who are fantastic prospects. Jordan Zamora hasn't signed a new contract yet. Jadon Anthony, thankfully, has. That's going to knock their confidence.
100%.
And I was on 606 on the way back, spoke to Robbie Savage and Chris Sutton. They disagreed with me about sacking Scott Parker. I felt it was the only right thing to do, and that's what the club felt as well, because he did say earlier on in that window, before the season had even started, that he needed more reinforcements, and he got that in Senesi. And then he's turned around and said it again. I think Maxim's patience ran out, but the funny thing now is Scott Parker, if he had kept quiet during that time and just carried on, would have had the money that he was desperate to spend.
Yeah.
So Gary O'Neill's come in. I think initially he did a fantastic job. He steadied the ship. After a 9-0 defeat, the most important thing is not to concede. And we got a 0-0 draw against Wolves. It was scrappy. It wasn't particularly the greatest game going, but that enabled us to then go into that Forest game, which we was 2-0 down in at half-time, to win 3-2. And that momentum built up. And I think if we hadn't got that decent result against Wolves, I think that the subsequent results wouldn't have come. In fact, for a period of time, we were actually we went the longest without a defeat.
Yeah.
Since that Liverpool game. So I think Gary O'Neill deserved the job. Does he deserve the job now? I think he has made mistakes. I think he's reverted back to the Scott Parker way of thinking. And one thing that I am insistent on that he does against Arsenal is attack.
Yeah.
Go forward, be bold, be positive. Don't just sit back and put 5 at the back and expect because you will pick us off. You will pick us off with ease. You have been by far the best team in the league this season.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you look at the post-World Cup results, and it doesn't make for good reading for Bournemouth fans like yourself, Craig. I think it's one win. That was a couple of weeks ago against Wolves away, which, a 1-0 win against Wolves away from home it's a good win. But aside from that, 2 draws and the rest of the games being defeats post-World Cup and goals conceded, the most in the league so far. Is that why he's reverted back to type? Do you think that post-World Cup it just hasn't kicked on from him taking over initially?
We started back after the World Cup with a cup game against Newcastle, which I don't think we did too badly in, but with against Chelsea and Manchester United, I think he has thought that he needed to grind out results rather than go for the juggler. The thing is Bournemouth have got a way of playing, and the way of playing has been ingrained into us from Eddie Howe, which is you score 3, we score 4. We've always tried to play on the front foot, where we've been bold in our attacks. We don't like sitting back. And Scott Parker brought that in. To be honest, Scott Parker, because he brought it in last season, did nearly mess up. Actually get it. Well, he messed up the title, but he did nearly mess up promotion, because there was a number of games against Peterborough we sat back too defensive, should have just gone for them. Against Reading, at home, we should have been 5-0 up at half time. We was 1-0 up. He decided he was going to go defensive, and they equalised and could have easily won the game. Against Derby, the same sort of scenario as well earlier in the season. We did get beat there. So it's been a problem defensively. If we go too deep, we can't cope. And I don't understand why he's done that. I just go for the juggler and be bold and be positive.
Well, back to back, you're facing the top two in the league. Last weekend it was Man City.
Yeah.
Obviously, you faced us. Talk to me about the Man City game, a 4-1 home defeat. I guess that was pretty much expected considering the form you've been on.
Yeah, I think, off the back of the Wolves game, we did have a little bit more optimism going into that match. The performances up until that point against Wolves, against Brighton for the majority, against Newcastle, was looking really good. It looked like we was attacking more. He didn't go, and to be fair, against Forest, we did play well as well. Mm-hmm. But the Forest and the Brighton games were the two for me, which highlighted a big issue, and he seemed to correct that issue. And that is, in the last 10 minutes, he just goes too deep. Against Forest, they equalised through Sam Surridge.
Yeah.
Against Brighton, it was 0-0, and we conceded in that last 10 minutes. He didn't do that against Newcastle. He didn't do that against Wolves. And, Newcastle, yes, they equalised, but at the same time, he was bold on that attack. He reverted to type against Manchester City. He went 5 at the back, and I felt it invited too much pressure on. Mm-hmm. However, one thing that I did notice was that we were a lot more direct. So when we did counter, we was a lot quicker. So we had Dongo Atara, who was breaking down the wing, Hamid Traore, where he was turning players. That was positive. Unfortunately, at the back, we was undone, played too deep. Haaland's goal, I thought, was very, very well taken. Mm-hmm. The third goal was the worst one for me because Phil Billing, I don't know what he was doing. There's one rule in football, which is don't pass across the goal. You don't pass across the face of goal. And what he did was he passed across the face of goal against Manchester City, and there was only going to be one outcome. But, we got our consolation. There's something to hold on to. Mm-hmm. But I think personally, what we need to do is, I would rather have gone into this game, being beat 6-0 against Manchester City because we've gone for it, but we've just not been good enough. We've gone for the juggler. You never know. That's what Forest did. They did sit back, but they did go for the juggler at times. There was waves that they did. And they got a result against Man City. That's what we need to do. Be a bit bolder.
I mean, you mentioned already you don't really want to be going 5 at the back against Arsenal at the Emirates because you don't seem to trust your defence. And on paper, like I said, the most goals conceded in the league. I guess that's the biggest weakness for Bournemouth at this present time, the defence.
Yeah, I think that we can score goals up the other end as well. But because we're going too defensively, it's taking a player out of that attacking motion. I don't think we need to do it. 4 at the back, fair enough. But I don't think we need to go 5.
Yeah.
And the way I'd like to see us set up, 4 at the back, 4 in midfield, with Solanke up front on his own, but Hamid Traore just behind him, spraying that ball and turning players. Because if Hamid Traore can turn players, then he can open up an opportunity for Solanke, to have a go at goal. Mm-hmm. And I think those two, once they do get a real bond, and we're starting to see it, I think will be quite scary. Hopefully it'll be scary in this league, not the Championship, because I think the pair of them will tear up the Championship.
Yeah, well, to be honest, you're down there, but there's not a lot separating you from, I think, 16th place at the moment. So it's all still to fight for at the moment. And You talked about creating chances and goals. Solanke up top, I think he's got 3, but your top scorers this season, Billing and Kiefer Moore, both on 4 goals apiece. But you've got a few players on 3. I think Lerma's is on 3 as well. But you're looking at Solanke as the difference maker for you. Well, not necessarily Solanke. You mentioned Traore too and Itara. For Bournemouth, who do you think is going to be if you have to take anything from the game at the Emirates, who do you think will be the difference maker for that to happen?
I think Hamid Traore. Was very, very good against Man City, and it didn't faze him.
Yeah.
I think if he can do against Arsenal what he did against Man City, we've got a chance of creating things up front. Of course, we have to look at our defence. Can we keep Arsenal out more times than we can actually score? But and with my head, the answer is probably no, even if Traore is really on fire. But at the same time, I think he would be the difference maker. But defensively, I think we have shored things up I know it sounds weird after a 4-1 defeat, but I think we have shored things up, by bringing back in Jack Stevens, who is actually on loan from Southampton. And I think he's been excellent. He's been really, really good. Chris Metham's been dropped in favour of Stevens. So that's an interesting one and a bold move from Gary O'Neill. But I think he's making a difference. And to be honest, he's an older player, but I think he's a player that, if the opportunity arose and we could buy him, I think would be a sensible signing at the end of the season if we're still in the Premier League.
Yeah. Obviously, it's still a lot to fight for, like we said. You mentioned Arsenal being the best team by far in the Premier League, and that's a quote from you earlier in the show. What do you make of Mikel Arteta's turnaround Arsenal at the moment, and the youngest side in the league, youngest manager in the league, and currently sitting top of the table, 5 points clear after that emphatic Everton win?
I think you look fantastic, and I think that personally, I think you will go on to win the Premier League this season. I did say earlier on in the year that even after, a couple of games, I saw that there was a real quality, there was a real togetherness from Arsenal. And I stand by that. I think at the moment, of course, Gabriel Jesus is out injured, and you're still getting these sort of results. I did watch you against Manchester City, and unfortunately, of course, you did get beaten in that game. But you did have more opportunities than Man City did. You did also, after Saka got that equaliser from the penalty spot, personally, I thought you were much the better team until City got their second goal. And I think it's going to be very narrow margins which way the title will go. But personally, I think Arsenal will win it. And I think Gabriel Jesus is going to be a massive bonus once he's coming back. I understand he might even be back for this weekend. So
I don't believe so.
Is that going to be a push, is it?
Yeah, it'd be a push.
Yeah. But you look at Martinelli and Odegaard, of course, he scored against Everton as well. Saka's goal was fantastic against Everton, the first goal. So there's...
Odegaard got a couple against you, right, in the first game?
He did, yeah. He scored two, and then, of course, Saliba got the third one. So, yeah, he's a very, very good player. He deserves the captaincy. I believe he was only made captain at the start of the season, wasn't he, as well? I think a young team, a very exciting team. Arteta's biggest challenge is going to be, once the season is over, to keep this team together and making sure that you can add sensibly to them and not disrupt the harmony, because there's definitely a bond between those players. It's a team. If I look at Man City and Arsenal and the two squads, you could possibly make the argument that Man City have got the better players man to man. However, Arsenal have got the better unity and the better team.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. and the two players we got from Manchester City have hit the ground well. Jesus out injured, but they both hit the ground running. Zinchenko's been a key part to the Arteta system and what we've been doing this season. You've mentioned a few players. Again, a similar question. In order to get something at the game, who's the one Arsenal player you believe you need to nullify? Which is a difficult question considering Arsenal are firing on multiple fronts, I'd say, and we've got a few key players in the side. More often than not, after games, we're debating who is man of the match, and differing opinions are coming, different names are brought up. So it's hard to pinpoint one player in particular, but there is a couple that stand out for me. I want to hear from you who you think you have to keep quiet in order to take something.
All of them. Realistically, the ones that I feel that we need to keep quiet, I think Saka has been very, very good at the moment. He'll be up against Jadon Anthony, most likely be up against Jadon Anthony on that wing. Anthony, again, is also a very young player, very, very talented. Over the moon that he signed a new contract. We're just hoping his mate, Jordan Zamora, also signs that contract as well.
Yeah.
But I think Saka, making sure that he's nullified, making sure that those runs are broken up, because Saka's not a greedy player. He will pass into great positions and he'll make those in-running moves as well. So I think he's probably the player that we need to nullify, and that's going to be down to Jadon Anthony. Martinelli, of course, has been excellent this season.
Yeah.
So the defence have got to be making sure. And funny enough, I actually made a video with regards to how to stop Erling Haaland, and you could say probably a similar sort of thing to Martinelli as well. Of course, there's pace there, there's strength there. So I think that's going to be down to most likely Jack Stevens to keep track of him. And the other player, Odegaard, I think, he was excellent in the first game at Dean Court.
Yeah.
And he's the heartbeat of the Arsenal team. And everybody says that Jesus is an important cog in that Arsenal team, but I think Odegaard is probably just as important, if not more important, to Arsenal.
Okay, like you said, he was the difference maker, in my opinion, against you guys over at your ground just before the World Cup break. But up front as well, I don't know how much you've seen of Arsenal in recent games, but we made a little change up front. As a Bournemouth fan, who would you rather see leading the line for Arsenal? Trossard, who will drop more, create space for Martinelli and Saka, or Eddie Nketiah, who will be in and around the box looking to poach and get on the end of things? Who would you rather be coming up against, considering your defensive problems?
We're not particularly very good at defending set, and I think that's why Jack Stevens has got the nod over Chris Metham. In that sense, Nketiah would be more dangerous being in that box, being able to, from corners, for example, that is going to be where he's going to thrive. Trossard, is a very good player. He's a player that we know quite well, to be fair. And I don't feel that he would excel as much as Nketiah would against Bournemouth. I think our midfield is probably our strength still. You will have Lerma in there, you'll have Phil Billing. Hopefully he won't be making any crosses across the box this time around. But Atara will also cut in as well, so if there's any danger. Now, if Trossard is coming too deep, then those players will get involved as well. And it seems like there is a little bit more, whereas Scott Parker used to give us teams too much room, there seems to be that more impetus of closing players down, giving them a yard, but not giving them too much that they just pick you off at ease. So out of the two, I'd rather not see Nketiah on there, but both players are dangerous.
Yeah.
Both players are problems.
Yeah, I mean, going into the game, I'm looking at Eddie to start up front for me, because we've got Sporting Lisbon round the corner, Europa League returns, and I wanna take it as serious as possible. And I just think that Eddie needs a goal, and I can see him getting a goal against Bournemouth if he does start the game. So I'd probably go with Eddie up top, but it'd be interesting to see what Arteta does, because he's preferred Trossard over the last couple of games, but he's also mentioned the need for rotation and the options he now has after the January window and players returning from injury. Emil Smith-Rowe got some minutes against Everton. Partey came on at half-time and dominated the midfield. So it'd be interesting to see what he does heading into that Sporting Lisbon fixture next Thursday, because that one's just before Fulham away, and looking at our games leading up to international break, that Fulham away one does stick out, because Fulham have been on form this season and they're doing quite well. So Bournemouth and Sporting lineups are going to be an interesting talking point if Arteta sticks by his word, which, you know, over the last few days there's going to be some rotation coming up. So we'll see. Slowly but surely, let's move into predictions now, Craig. As the home team, I'm going to kick it off. I predicted a 3-0 against Everton, and I'm going to predict a 3-0 against Bournemouth. I expect goals, and you look at our goal difference in comparison to Manchester City's. It was a difference of 10 before the Everton game. Now it's a difference of 6. And I think that could prove important come the end of the season. Manchester City notoriously, you know, they get a hell of a lot of goals, and they get a healthy goal difference every single season. So we've just got to keep pace with that. And I think at home to a Bournemouth side that have been struggling defensively, it's another chance for us, similar to Everton, to kind of etch away at that goal difference between us and Manchester City. So I'm going to go 3-0, couple clean sheets in a row as well for Arsenal. So I'm confident there. I do think Bournemouth will pose more of a threat to us in an attacking sense than Everton did, but I think we've got enough to handle it. But what do you think over there?
Against the Big Seven, as I'll call them this season, including Newcastle, have got 2 points. I don't know if you can call Chelsea that this year, but yeah,
true.
They did beat us. We've got 2 points, and both of those were against Newcastle.
Okay.
I think we need to be able to break that at some point. But personally, I don't think it will be against Arsenal. I think Mikel Arteta will have the team fired up, because there is a need now, and the finish line is in sight for him. You know, he will be making sure that every game that Arsenal go into, they are chomping at the bit to win, and it's not going to be no different on Saturday. Personally, I think we might get a goal. But I think I've got to agree with you. It's probably going to be 3 that we'll concede. I'd love to say, you know, we'll get a result at the Emirates. I just can't see it.
So you think of 3-1s on the cards?
Yeah, I'm just hoping that none of the teams around us, and to be honest, you did a massive favour for us yesterday, beating Everton. Of course, Wolves also lost as well, so they're still in there. We've just got to hope, because of course, after Arsenal, we've got Liverpool. Hopefully, we can get a little bit of revenge on them. I think personally, that's the game. If we're going to beat one of the top 7 this season, I think they're the team. And I know that sounds crazy, because we got beat 9-0 against them earlier on the season. But I think they're the team most likely that we can pick off. But yeah, I can't see anything but an Arsenal win.
I guess looking at the bright side of this run of fixtures for you, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, is that you're getting them out the way heading into the last 10 games of the season. So there'll be more opportunity for you to, you know, if you don't pick up a win or a point against Liverpool, to rack up some of the points towards the end of the season that you know might keep you up in the league. So I've gone 3-0, you've gone 3-1. Interesting, because Mike, the Everton fan that I had on for Box to Box, he predicted a 3-0 Arsenal win, and he said it could have been 4, it could be 4, it could be 5. It ended up being 4. Second game in the row now where it's funny to me, because since I've started Box to Box, this is the first season where, talking to opposition fans, you can genuinely feel not necessarily the fear, but the respect that Arsenal have slowly but surely got back amongst opposition fans and opposition clubs as well. So, yeah, I'm hoping for any score. 3-0, 3-1, I'll take it all, my guy. 3 points on the board is the main thing. But Craig, let them know where they can find you. I did say I'm going to tag your channel link in the title, but talk to them.
Yep. So our channel is called UTC IAD, Up the Cherries in All Departments. So we do interviews with former players, former managers. We've had Harry Redknapp on there, Steve Fletcher, Steve Cook, Eddie Mitchell, who I did mention earlier on in the show. And we also do opposition preview shows as well. James will be on our show tomorrow as well.
Nice.
So do check that out. So yeah, thank you so much for having me on, and do check us out and give us a sub, because it all does help. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be on again.
No worries, Craig, man. Anytime. Hopefully we do it again next year. We'll see where you're at. And people, you heard he's got James on the channel, so make sure you subscribe and give them a follow. I believe it's the same on the socials as well, so I'll put that in the description link as well, people. Craig, love for coming on and giving us your time. I would say good luck for this one, but I won't. I'll say good luck for the rest of the season after this one. And yeah, cheers, we'll keep it moving. Listen, people, love for the love. Hit the like button. Let's get it up to 1,000 and give us your thoughts, predictions, key battles in the description below. We're at. Tune in again real soon. Peace.
Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.